At the marina parking lot, I found my son sleeping in his truck with his baby girl wrapped in a towel because he didn't have a blanket. I banged on the window and asked, "Where is the $130,000 I gave you for the barbershop?" He broke down and told me his wife and her brother had taken it all and told the courts he was unfit. I felt something rise up in me that I hadn't felt since I was a young man on the docks, and I said, "Get in my truck. We are ending this tonight." Before I go on, tell me where you're watching from, family, down in the comments. And if you have ever had to stand between your child and somebody who wanted to destroy them, hit that like button and subscribe, because you're going to want to see how this ends. My name is Elton Marsh. I am 64 years old. I spent 38 years working the ports of Norfolk, Virginia, loading and unloading freight until my knees gave out and my back turned to gravel. I raised 2 children alone after my wife passed from cancer when they were still small, and I did it without complaint, because that is what a man does. I retired 4 years ago with a modest pension, 3 rental duplexes. I bought one at a time over 20 years, and a reputation on the waterfront for being a man who did not forget a debt, owed or collected. I thought my fighting days were behind me. I thought the rest of my life would be Sunday fish fries and teaching my granddaughter how to cast a line off the pier. I was wrong. The war found me again, and it was waiting in a parking lot behind the marina on a cold Tuesday night in March. I had just come back from checking on one of my rental properties out in Chesapeake, a 2-hour round trip I made every week like clockwork. My phone had been buzzing all evening with calls I didn't recognize, and something in my gut told me to swing by the marina where my son Marcus used to keep his old fishing boat docked. I don't know why. Call it a father's instinct. Call it the Lord tapping me on the shoulder. I pulled into that gravel lot and my headlights swept across a beat-up Ford pickup parked crooked in the far corner, away from the lampposts, tucked behind a dumpster like somebody was trying to hide it. I knew that truck. I had co-signed for it 2 years back. It was Marcus's. My heart didn't skip from fear. It skipped from confusion, same as any father would feel seeing his boy's truck parked in a place it had no business being at 11 o'clock at night. Marcus was supposed to be at home in that nice brick rancher in Virginia Beach, running the barbershop I'd help him open, tucking his daughter into bed. I walked up slow. The windows were fogged. There was a child's car seat wedged between 2 duffel bags in the back. I knocked on the glass, and a shape stirred inside. The window cracked an inch, and my son's face appeared, and I almost didn't recognize him. His eyes were sunken. His jaw had a rough patch of beard he never would have let grow out before. "Pop," he rasped, like his throat was full of gravel. "Open this door," I said. I didn't ask. I used the voice I used on longshoremen who thought they could shortchange a shipment. He unlocked it, and I pulled the door open, and the smell hit me first. Fast food wrappers and diaper cream, and the particular smell of a man who hasn't showered in days. And there in the back seat, curled in an infant carrier with nothing but a bath towel for a blanket, was my granddaughter, Nadia, 6 months old. Her little face was red from the cold. She should have been in a crib in a warm nursery. Instead, she was sleeping in the bed of a truck in a gravel lot behind a marina. I didn't hug my son. I have never believed hugs solve problems. Facts solve problems. I leaned down, put my face close to his, and I said, "Where is the money, Marcus? Where is the $130,000 I put into that shop?" He flinched, like I'd struck him. "It's gone, Dad," he whispered, and then the sob came, ugly and raw. Renata took it. Renata and her brother Cedric. They took everything and they told the judge I was dangerous. Renata, his wife. The woman who used to bring me sweet potato pie every Sunday and call me Pop with a big smile on her face. The woman who stood up in my living room 2 Christmases ago and thanked me in front of the whole family for believing in her husband's dream. She kicked me out 3 days ago, Marcus said. The words spilling like poison finally let loose. Changed the locks. Told the police I threatened to hurt her and the baby. She got an emergency order. I wasn't even allowed to grab Nadia's medicine. My hands balled into fists at my sides. My son had never raised his voice at anybody in his whole life. He was built soft, like his mother. Gentle in a way the world doesn't reward men for being. "The barbershop," I said. "The one I gave you the down payment for." He nodded miserably. Renata said Cedric had a way to expand it faster. Open a second location. She had me sign papers moving the business account into some kind of holding fund her brother managed. Said it was for taxes. And who's the trustee on that fund? I said, though I already knew the shape of the answer sitting in my chest like a stone. Cedric, he whispered. Cedric controls it all now. I looked back at my granddaughter sleeping in the cold. Whatever this family had done to my son, I understood in that moment it wasn't a marriage falling apart. It was a demolition, planned and executed, and Renata's family had made one mistake in their calculations. They thought they were dismantling a soft-spoken barber. They didn't know his father used to run a crew of 40 men on the Norfolk docks, and never once lost a shipment to a man who thought he could steal from him twice. Get out of the truck, I told him. Grab the baby bag. Grab what you need. Leave the rest. You're driving my truck to my house. Keys under the flower pot. Same as it's been for 15 years. There's a pot of oxtail stew in my freezer. Warm it up, feed yourself, shower, shave that mess off your face. You look like a victim, and no son of mine is going to wear that look. Dad? Marcus said, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. What are you going to do? I'm going to drive your truck to that house on Willow Creek Lane, I said, and I'm going to have a long, loud conversation with your wife. He grabbed my arm, and his grip had no strength left in it. Dad, no. She's got a restraining order. She's got Cedric there. They'll say you attacked them. You'll go to jail. I smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. Let them call the police, I said. I want everything on record starting right now. I buckled my son and my granddaughter into my truck, watched the taillights pull out of that gravel lot, and then I climbed into Marcus's beat-up Ford, adjusted the mirrors, and pointed it toward Willow Creek Lane. 30 minutes to plan. Renata thought she'd broken a gentleman down to nothing. She didn't know she was about to meet his father. I picked up my phone and called a number I hadn't dialed in 3 years. Yusuf, I said, when he answered. It's Elton Marsh. Elton Marsh, the voice on the other end said, smooth and sharp as a straight razor. Thought you retired for good this time. I need you to open a file, I said. On a family named Whitfield, Renata and Cedric. I want bank accounts, I want debts, I want to know what they had for breakfast and who they owe money to. This is going to cost you, old man. Good, I said. Let it cost. It's their money I'll be spending it to expose, not mine. I pulled up to the house, a nice 2-story I'd helped Marcus put 12% down on, and there was an unfamiliar silver Charger blocking the driveway with a vanity plate that read Cedric W. I got out, walked to the front door, and I didn't knock politely. I hammered on it with the side of my fist until the porch light flicked on, and Renata's voice screeched from behind the door. Who is that? It's Elton, I said. Open the door, or I open it myself. The door cracked, chained. Renata's eye appeared in the gap, and when she saw me, her face went from fear to something colder, something almost triumphant. You need to leave, she said. I have a restraining order against Marcus, and if you're helping him, you're an accessory. That order's for my son, I said. Not for me. I'm here to see my granddaughter's college fund, since you were so eager to lock her father out of his own life to protect it. The chain slid off. Cedric appeared behind her, a tall man in a tracksuit with a fresh haircut and gold on his wrist that I was fairly certain my son's money had paid for. Elton Marsh, Cedric said, like my name tasted good in his mouth. The concrete legend. Come on in, old man. Sit down. You look tired. I stepped past him into the living room, and there, sitting on the coffee table like a trophy, was a leasing agreement for a brand new Cadillac Escalade, dated 3 days earlier. The same 3 days since my son had been thrown out of his own home. I picked it up and read it slow, deliberate, letting them watch me read it. Nice truck, Cedric, I said. You buy that with your own money, or did you use my son's? Cedric's jaw tightened. That's family business, not yours. My $130,000 is family business, I said. Where is the barbershop account? Renata stepped forward, arms crossed, chin lifted like she was posing for a photograph. Marcus signed everything over willingly, she said. He's not competent to manage money, Elton. You saw how he was acting. Erratic. Paranoid. I was protecting our daughter. He wasn't erratic, I said, my voice dropping low and even. He was poisoned by whatever you two have been feeding him, and I intend to find out exactly what. The room went quiet for half a second too long, and in that silence I saw the flicker cross both their faces. The flicker of two people who had just heard the wrong words come out of the wrong mouth. Cedric recovered first. You need to leave before I call the police, he said. Call them, I said. I want it on the record that I stood in this house and asked where my granddaughter's money went, and you couldn't answer. Blue lights swept across the front window a few minutes later, and two officers walked me out, polite but firm, and issued me a trespass warning. I didn't fight it. I had seen enough. I had seen the least escalade. I had seen the fear underneath their arrogance. And I had planted a seed I intended to water. I drove Marcus's truck back to my house that night, and I found my son sitting at my kitchen table in one of my old flannel shirts, showered, shaved, staring into a mug of decaf like he expected something to crawl out of it. Nadia was asleep in the guest room in a crib I hadn't used since Marcus himself was a baby. Tell me from the beginning, I said, sitting across from him. Not the money. Tell me about the fog. He looked at me with something like relief and something like terror mixed together. It started about 8 months ago, Dad, he said. Renata started making my coffee every morning. Said she found this good roast at the farmer's market. I'd drink it and 30 minutes later I couldn't think straight. I'd lose whole afternoons. I'd forget I had customers booked. I forgot Nadia's pediatrician appointment twice. My hands went still on the table. Go on, I said, though something cold was already tightening in my chest. She started recording me, he said, and his voice cracked. She'd show me videos the next day of me yelling at nothing, crying on the bathroom floor. I don't remember any of it, Dad. She said I was having breakdowns. She took me to see somebody, not a real doctor, some wellness coach Cedric knew, who said I had adrenal burnout and gave me supplements. Did you take them? I asked, though I could already see where this river ran. She gave them to me, he said. Crushed into my food, she said it absorbed better. I closed my eyes. I thought of my late wife, God rest her, and how she used to tell our children that some people don't fight you with fists, they fight you with patience. A little poison every single day until you can't remember who you used to be. It wasn't burnout, son, I said. Somebody was sedating you. He nodded slowly, tears finally spilling. I found a pill bottle a week ago, he said. Wasn't in her name. Prescription antipsychotic, high dose, in Cedric's name. I confronted her, and she cried, and said it was for her own anxiety, that I must have grabbed the wrong bottle by accident. And the barbershop money, I said, the 130,000. She told me if I didn't move it into a family trust, the state would seize the business because of my, quote, mental instability, he whispered. She brought me the papers on a bad day, when the fog was so thick I could barely read. I signed it, Dad. I thought I was protecting Nadia's future. Who's the trustee? I asked, though I already knew. Cedric, he said. Full control. Irrevocable. My phone rang at 11 that night. It was Yusuf, and he doesn't call after 9 unless the roof is caving in. I put him on speaker so Marcus could hear. We've got a problem, Yusuf said, his voice all business now, no charm in it. Renata's lawyer just filed an emergency petition, not custody, guardianship, full legal guardianship over Marcus, claiming rapid onset psychosis, dangerous to himself and his daughter. Hearings in 48 hours. Marcus made a sound, like the air had been punched out of him. If this goes through, Yusuf continued, Marcus loses everything. Loses his right to fight it in court. Loses Nadia. Loses whatever's left of that money. He becomes a ward of his own wife. I looked at my son, at the fear etched into a face I used to lift onto my shoulders at the county fair, and I felt something settle inside me, cold and clear, the same feeling I used to get standing on a dock at 4 a.m., watching a ship come in that I knew was carrying trouble. Then we don't wait for them to come for us, I said. We go get the proof first. Yusuf, I need the best forensic toxicologist you can find in Virginia. I need blood work, I need hair samples, and I need it tomorrow morning. and I need a forensic accountant who can trace money through a rat's maze. I want to know every dollar of that 130,000 and where it landed. On it, Yusuf said. I know a woman in Richmond. She used to work fraud cases for the state. I'll have her here by 8. Can we win this, Dad? Marcus asked me, and his voice sounded so small I had to grip the edge of the table. They have videos of me. Real videos. Screaming, crying. I put my hand on his shoulder, the same shoulder I used to hold steady when he was learning to ride a bike. Son, I said, they have videos of a man who was drugged without his knowledge. We're going to have science. We're going to have the money trail. And we're going to have me. I turned back to the phone. Yusuf, one more thing. Draft me something. An affidavit. I want to go back to that house tomorrow, and I want to look like a broken old man ready to hand over one last check. You're baiting them. Yusuf said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. I'm baiting them, I said. Get some sleep, son, I told Marcus. Tomorrow you're not the victim anymore. Tomorrow you're the man who's about to watch his family come back together. The next morning, I put on an old cardigan that smelled like mothballs and left my good boots by the door for a pair of worn-out loafers. I let my face go unshaven, let my shoulders curve the way 40 years on a dock had taught them not to. I drove to Willow Creek Lane 10 miles under the limit, and when Cedric opened the door, I let my voice crack just enough. I'm not here to fight, I said, holding out a manila envelope. I read the reports on Marcus. I saw the videos. Lord, forgive me, but you were right about him. He's not the boy I raised anymore. Cedric's whole posture changed, chest puffing, the predator smelling something wounded. It's a tragedy, Elton, he said, oily and satisfied. But it's better this way, for the baby. I nodded, like a man defeated. I've got property, I said. Land my daddy left me down in North Carolina, near the new distribution hub they're building. Never told anybody. Worth near $500,000. I was saving it for my own retirement, but Nadia needs it more than I do. His eyes went wide, and I watched greed do exactly what greed does to a hungry man's face. He brought me inside, where Renata sat at the kitchen island with her laptop open, and when I laid the fake appraisal on the counter, the temperature in that room changed instantly. I can't manage it myself, I said, and I certainly won't let Marcus near it, not the way he is now. Cedric, you handled the barbershop money so well. Maybe you could manage this too. The look that passed between Renata and her brother was electric, hungry, and blind to the trap closing around them. I pulled out a single document Yusuf had drafted overnight, an affidavit stating that all parties present had witnessed Marcus's instability and drug use firsthand, and that Cedric would take full fiduciary responsibility, bypassing any court oversight. They didn't hesitate. They didn't call a lawyer. Cedric signed first, flourish and all. Renata signed second. I folded that paper and slipped it into my jacket, right next to the small recorder that had been running since I stepped out of my truck. 2 days later, in the fluorescent hush of family court, Renata sat at the plaintiff's table in a modest gray dress, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue while her lawyer played a video of Marcus screaming at nothing in his own kitchen, hurling a coffee mug against the wall. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Coleman with reading glasses perched low on her nose, watched it without blinking. We don't dispute that man was having an episode, my lawyer Yusuf said, rising slow and buttoning his jacket. We dispute the cause. A murmur ran through the gallery. We submit Exhibit A, Yusuf continued, and the screen flickered to footage from a hidden camera I had installed myself weeks earlier under the guise of fixing a smoke detector. It showed Renata, calm as Sunday morning, grinding pills into Marcus's coffee, watching him drink every drop, then filming him 20 minutes later as the fog rolled over his eyes. The courtroom went dead silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. The forensic toxicologist took the stand and confirmed Marcus's hair follicles showed 6 months of consistent haloperidol exposure, a drug he'd never been prescribed, a drug that matched exactly what Cedric had picked up at the pharmacy under his own name. Judge Coleman's face went to stone. Mrs. Whitfield, she said, Do you have an explanation for grinding your husband's mother-in-law's antipsychotic medication into his coffee? Renata's mask cracked right there on the stand, the tears drying up instantly, replaced with something uglier. He needed it, she snapped. He was out of control. The judge denied the guardianship petition with prejudice, issued an immediate restraining order against Renata and Cedric, and referred the entire matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. 2 bailiffs moved toward Renata, but she was already looking at me from across that courtroom, and she said, loud enough for the whole gallery to hear, "Fine, you can prove I drugged him. You can't touch the money. It's gone. Spent. You'll never see a dime." She thought she'd won, because the cash was gone, turned into hard assets she thought were untouchable. She didn't understand how a man who spent 40 years moving freight through customs actually understands money. Money doesn't disappear, it moves, and anything that moves can be tracked, and anything that can be tracked can be seized. The forensic accountant Yusuf brought in, a sharp woman named Denise, who'd spent a decade chasing fraud for the Commonwealth, traced the $130,000 in under a day. It had gone into a down payment on a lakefront rental cabin out near Smith Mountain Lake, purchased under a Shell LLC, with a mortgage secured through fabricated income statements claiming Cedric ran a consulting firm that existed nowhere but on paper. That was federal bank fraud, plain and simple, and it meant the loan could be called due the moment the lender learned the truth. I bought that debt myself the next morning through a holding company I'd used 20 years earlier to buy up distressed rental properties along the waterfront. I bought the note on that cabin. I bought the lease on Cedric's Escalade. By noon, I owned every piece of paper standing between the Whitfield family and the American dream they'd stolen to build. That same week, Renata had planned a launch party for a wellness and hair care brand she called Crowned, set to debut at a downtown event hall she'd rented, with money from the very trust she'd stolen. Influencers, local news, a stage with her face glowing on a screen behind her, captioned "Rising from the Ashes." I called the venue owner, a man named Desmond who'd hired my crew to lay concrete for his loading dock 15 years back, and still owed me a favor. "You've got an event tonight paid for with stolen money, Desmond," I told him. "I need the back door, and I need 5 minutes with your sound system." He sighed and gave me the code. That night, Marcus stood beside me in a suit that fit him like armor again, his jaw set, his eyes clear for the first time in months. On stage, Renata was mid-speech, voice trembling with rehearsed pain, telling a ballroom full of strangers how she'd survived a husband's mental collapse to build an empire from nothing. The crowd was eating out of her hand, phones raised, tears in their eyes. We walked down the center aisle, 3 men in dark suits, cutting through a sea of sequins and lies, and the applause died in a wave rolling from the back of the room to the front, until Renata opened her eyes and saw us, and the microphone nearly slipped from her hand. "Security," she shrieked. "These men are stalking me." I raised my voice, calm and even, carrying without a microphone. "I'm the anonymous investor who funded tonight's venue rental," I said, and every head in that room turned. I signaled to the sound booth, and Desmond cut her mic and rolled the recording, her own voice filling that ballroom, laughing about how easy it had been to trick a broken old man into signing over $500,000, Cedric's voice on tape bragging about the fake trust. The gasp that ran through that crowd was the sound of an empire collapsing in real time. Marcus took the microphone from his wife's shaking hand. "I'm not crazy," he said, his voice steady as bedrock. "I was drugged. We have the blood work. We have the video. We know about the cabin. We know about the car. We know it all." Renata's face crumbled from performance into panic, and then Cedric came charging up the side stairs, red-faced, shouting about lawsuits, right as the side doors opened, and it wasn't security walking in. It was detectives with a warrant. They arrested Renata on the spot for assault with a controlled substance and conspiracy to defraud. They arrested Cedric for bank fraud and wire fraud before he even finished threatening to sue me. As they dragged her past the stunned crowd, Renata turned back one last time and screamed that I had destroyed her life, that I was a monster, and I looked down at her and said, quiet enough that only she could hear, "No. I'm just a father who did his job." The side door opened again, and my niece Denise, who'd been watching Nadia that evening, walked in holding my granddaughter's little hand as she toddled across the ballroom floor toward her father. Marcus dropped to his knees right there on that hardwood, scooped her up, and wept the kind of tears a man only cries when the weight finally lifts clean off his chest. I stood back and let them have that moment. That wasn't mine to stand in the middle of. That belonged to them. 3 months later, Renata took a plea deal for 6 years in state prison. Cedric got 4 years federal. The wellness brand dissolved, its assets liquidated to pay back the very people it had stolen from, myself included. On a warm Saturday in June, I drove out to that house on Willow Creek Lane, the one the bank had foreclosed on after Renata's fraud came fully to light, and I handed Marcus a set of keys. "I bought it back at auction," I told him. "But this isn't a gift, son. I'm not Renata's people. I don't buy loyalty with handouts. I pulled out a mortgage agreement, fair terms, standard interest. You're going to pay me back every dollar, but the deed's in your name only this time. No trusts, no in-laws, no strings. You're the master of that house." He shook my hand, firm, a man's grip, and thanked me. That afternoon, I sat in a lawn chair in the backyard, sipping sweet tea, watching my son teach Nadia how to walk across freshly cut grass while the sun went down gold over the water, and I thought about every dollar it had cost me and every hour of sleep I had lost. And I knew without a doubt it was the finest investment I had ever made in my life. This story is a reminder that family isn't something you can steal with paperwork, and love isn't something you can fake your way into keeping. Money can be traced and returned. Trust, once shattered, takes a whole lot longer to rebuild, but it can be rebuilt, brick by brick, the same way anything worth having is built. If you enjoyed this story, tell me where you're watching from, family, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you believe in standing up for the ones you love no matter the cost, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. A father's love isn't measured by the money he hands over, but by how quick he shows up when his child is hurting. Blood family doesn't always mean safety, and sometimes protecting the ones you love means being brave enough to see the truth, even when it breaks your heart first. Healing takes time, but with patience and grit, broken trust can be rebuilt into something even stronger than before. A small note for you. This story was written and fictionalized by AI for entertainment purposes, while hoping to share a positive life lesson along the way.